The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. I want to take a moment to thank everybody that is started to roll in. We are a couple of minutes early, depending on your time zone. Feel free to get your cup of joe. If it's a little bit later in your day, maybe you want to take a little break before the session starts. It will be starting in about a minute and a half. Thank you so much, and we will start promptly on the dot. Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Um, we are still counting on a few more joinees. It is the start time. So we're just going to go ahead and start. And if you guys have questions, comments, feel free to type those in the chat. And we will have, I will have help from staff members to kind of field some of those questions as they come through. Uh, if there are any technical difficulties where you're unable to hear something or you know, anything, just please feel free to let me know and I'll try to be on top of it. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my camera so you can see me. There we go. I'm going to pull back a little bit. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and start. Thank you for joining. This is a Simtrax webinar. It's about improving AP operations in SAP while maintaining clean core. The goal, of course, is to get smarter AP and clean your SAP. It's presented by myself. My name is David Ibarra-Martin. I'm the AP automation strategy lead for the Americas. And I think we can just kind of go ahead and get started here. So what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to talk a little bit about ourselves, the modern SAP landscape, and clean core. For those of you that are interested in clean core but don't know exactly what it is, we are going to cover a definition of it so we're all kind of on the same page. Afterwards, we're going to talk about the modernization challenges of accounts payable in SAP, followed by governance. What is that? We're also going to cover what governance is and why it's important to do that before posting to SAP, as it is a control framework that helps in the AP workflow. We're going to do a transition from governance to AP automation, AP automation capabilities and functional overview, followed by a demonstration of the solution. Afterwards, I will take the time to answer questions that have been posited during the session, and you can also bring those questions up via chat during Q&A. Okay, I see that I am actually showing the wrong slide, so let me go ahead and change that. I do apologize for the technical difficulty. Let me go ahead and switch that over. Let me switch that slideshow. I go over to display settings, so presenter and view. Okay, now we should actually have the correct view. I do apologize for that misuse earlier, but the webinar is improving AP operations in SAP while maintaining clean core. Smarter AP, cleaner SAP. I already mentioned that I am the AP automation strategy lead for the Americas. Let's go ahead and, in terms of the agenda, if you were listening earlier, it is going to be covering the modern SAP landscape and clean core, AP modernization challenges in SAP, governance, why it's important before posting, control framework for AP. Then we're going to transition over to AP automation, its capabilities and functional overview, followed by a solution demonstration and then a Q&A session. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next thing. Okay, so a little bit about us. We've been in the data document transformation environment for 30 plus years in that business. We offer different sets of solution categories, and we're a global company that is spread across the world with 8 offices. And we are an SAP partner. We've been an SAP partner for close to 20 years. And that's what has enabled us to kind of speak on the subject of, some of the pitfalls of SAP implementations and how to improve AP in an SAP environment. Like, of course, today's topic is enterprise e-invoicing solution, basically a solution that will help with governance and AP automation. Now, where essentially our business in the last 30 years has been positioning ourselves as the document and data hub, whether you're starting with a workflow that originates in paper form or it originates in a data form, and you need to push that data over to an SAP system. Well, we help handle that data information, transforming it and placing it in SAP. Conversely, if your origination for data is in SAP and you need it placed in a physical environment, whether it's via printing, or you need it in a digital environment, like in a Windows environment, or even a cloud environment, Cimtrax is also positioned to assist in those workflows. So either from left to right or right to left. This is a very simple, very high level view of what we can do and have done for customers in the past. Now, actually getting into the meat and potatoes of what we want to talk about, which is, of course, the clean core and how to improve. PowerPoint isn't showing. Really? Okay. I do apologize, everybody, for the for not being able to show my screen earlier. I'm going to go ahead and just restart one more time. I do sincerely apologize for what I'm sure you guys are frustrated over. Here is the overview. I did mention that we are in a solution, in the solution category for enterprise e-invoicing specifically for today. We're a global company. We're SAP partner. We help with flows originating from physical locations or digital locations in a Windows environment and can put it over to SAP, and conversely from SAP over to an environment that you're looking to place it in for back office or even front office workflows. Now, when it comes to SAP and getting a handle on the SAP environment today, we have to take a little look at the history of SAP. There have been various versions over the past, and they all lasted just about a decade in terms of usage and support. R1 was the original one. It was founded by SAP founders, obviously, and it was for financial accounting. Version 2 improved the SAP system because now it was a two-tiered system with a presentation and a database layer. The presentation layer was for people like accountants such as yourselves. I know that a lot of the audience is in accounting. So the presentation layer allowed for accountants to more easily use the SAP system, and it's separated from the database layer. Now, the third version, R3, some of you may have worked with R3 in the past, introduced an application layer. And that application layer is very important for today's discussion because that application layer is what subsequently allowed the fourth version of SAP, ECC, to actually have improved functionality. You could have customizations in that layer. You could have different workflows that were super customized to your specific industry. And while it was a breath of fresh air for a lot of businesses to finally be able to further customize SAP, it did eventually lead to some issues in terms of being able to upgrade their SAP systems. And that's where S/4HANA came in. S/4HANA introduced RAM-based, faster database layer, and it simplified the user experience with Fiori. And so what we see here is that SAP ECC version lasted and is coming to a close in 2027. But it's been 20 plus years of service, and that's kind of outstanding in terms of SAP given the past. S4 HANA is promising to be in support through to 2040. So that's a bit of the product history. We'll get a little deeper into Clean Core and how that affects AP and why it's important to think about Clean Core, both from an AP perspective as well as from an IT perspective. Um, Speaking a little bit more to the architectural evolution from ECC to S4 HANA, I did mention that in ECC, it was a breath of fresh air for companies to actually be able to customize their ERP environments. And the customization truly was incredible, guys. I mean, not only did it further the three-tier ERP architecture, but it allowed to connect to any database, whether it was, and some of you might be doing this today, where your databases for SAP are actually housed out of, say, a Microsoft database or even a NetSuite database, Oracle. There's so many different implementations out there. So it's really, truly heavily customized. And these customizations were further, extended with ABAP programming. You guys might have ABAP programmers, or you guys might be leveraging a solution that leverages Z programs. And it's embedded directly in the ERP core. The downside of this is that upgrading can be very difficult, moving from one system to another, right? Because the business logic is so tightly coupled in SAP. I don't know how many of you guys have also seen that, just having to do any upgrade for SAP can be very difficult because that can mess with the logic that was already heavily customized. Not only that, it ran slower than S4HANA because you had so many redundant tables and it was just very inefficient code overall. S4HANA reduced the modifications by eliminating that compatibility with other databases. It put forward the S4HANA database, and so there is that move to an S4HANA that is required to adopt the S4HANA architecture. But that is not a downside because there are reduced custom modifications, meaning that upgrades and migrations in the future are simpler because of a reliance on AP-driven integration. Sorry, API-driven integration. Okay. And of course, from an AP perspective, there is an improved user interface with the Fiori user interface. In terms of a timeline and understanding kind of the urgency of moving from ECC to S4HANA, as of December 31st, 2025, some compatibility packs were phased out, and the flexibility in terms of timing and even technical capability for modernization has narrowed. Today, ECC luckily still remains under mainstream support. Customizations and bolt-ons increase future migration friction. That's what I've been talking about. Some customizations that may be in the AP portion of SAP or in other business logic for SAP today might be causing that difficulty for the IT teams to actually switch over to S4HANA. So thinking about today, it is an ideal time to think about and externalize how to move non-core processes or even core processes and preserve clean core. Basically, do something that is adherent to clear core via API integration. December 31st, 2027 is when SAP does plan on no longer supporting ECC. But if people do still decide to work out of ECC, SAP will offer a premium support up until 2030, but the actual upgrade path to S4HANA will be costly and a little bit more difficult with that additional economic strain. So I know I've been talking a lot, guys, but I do want to kind of get everybody to interact a little bit and give us some insight into the following question. We talked a lot about SAP environments, so I want to ask, what SAP environment is your organization currently running? Is it SAP ECC, SAP S4HANA, other SAP system? Maybe it's not even an SAP system. Maybe you're here just because you do want to migrate to an SAP system in the future, or If you're not sure, that's entirely okay. A lot of us here today are not necessarily, you know, technical owners of the systems, but rather users that just know that they happen to work out of an SAP system or a non-SAP system. So please take a moment to answer this question. I do appreciate your feedback. And sincerely, guys, I do apologize for starting the session earlier today with a lack of showing my screen or even showing the incorrect screen. Thank you so much. I do see that we are collecting responses. I'm going to give it 10 more seconds and we're going to close it off. Okay. Alrighty. And it's closing just about now. Alrighty. So we do have some people on other SAP systems, as well as non-SAP systems and S/4HANA. Actually, a good amount of you guys are on S/4HANA, so that's great. You guys already went through the trouble of migrating. And for those of you that are not sure, it might be a combination of R3 or ECC. Let's go ahead and I know I just asked you guys to answer a poll, but I do want to ask this second question, and it is, does your organization plan on migrating to SAP S/4HANA? Obviously, for the 40% of you that answered that are on S/4HANA, you guys are already fully migrated, so feel free to plug that in there. You might be currently in the middle of a migration, or you're probably aiming to migrate. And if you're not entirely sure, that's completely okay. Feel free to switch that over. Okay, great. And again, for those of you guys that are fully migrated, that's great. There's still a lot of very important information during this presentation, as it will talk about clean core and clean core adherence and why it's important to adhere to that principle. The definition for clean core is coming up just shortly. Okay. And oh, interestingly enough, I do see some individuals are not migrating until 2031 or after. And that is, that's just a fact of life. Sometimes we're not able to migrate as um, quickly as we might want to. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. And we're going to continue with the presentation. So what is Clean Core? If you guys are already on S/4HANA and you have some sort of technical ownership, you might already know. But for those that don't, Clean Core is an SAP architectural principle that minimizes direct customizations inside of the ERP system. What this means is it allows organizations to maintain stable, upgrade-ready SAP environments, not just for SAP S/4HANA, but SAP S/4HANA is an ever-evolving ERP platform that has yearly updates, and basically any of these updates won't interfere with your business logic if it's decoupled from the business logic layer. And if you're clean core adherent, that means you're keeping the SAP core clean, and business logic doesn't necessarily reside within the business layer of that three-layer architecture we talked about previously. And why is that? That's because that automation or that business logic is outside of the SAP, and it can actually interact with the SAP database and the SAP users via something called APIs. They're an integration technology that allows code to come through and come out of SAP, and they can meet in the middle, and you can do that secure data transfer to help improve business operations. Another benefit is it's going to minimize custom code inside of SAP. And as I keep saying, it enables easier upgrades and innovation. So truly, thanks to APIs and the decoupling of business logic, we can adhere to clean core because that's the definition of clean core. Now, if we revisit this slide to SAP ECC, some of the negatives have been highlighted in red. It was heavily customized. It relied on custom ABAP programming, Z programming as well, and that business logic was coupled. S/4HANA with a clean core strategy, it's a lot more positive, and it's just great overall. Now, when we talk about AP, accounts payable, which I know a lot of us here are, you might be aware that SAP has been great for posting. It can actually record financial transactions in the system, and you can update those accounts as needed, and it becomes part of the official accounting records. SAP, again, started off as a financial accounting system, and so it's great for that. SAP is optimized for financial posting, but it's not the best for document intake, for inbound invoice processing. Um, so validation often happens after invoices enter an SAP currently for a lot of uh, people working out of SAP. And having to work out of SAP and then manually change these records can be very tedious, very frustrating, and there can be a lot of errors associated with that. Exception resolution is another topic in AP that spans multiple departments, such as purchasing for the POs, logistics for the goods receipt portion. Validators might have to go into it's just very difficult to handle the entire AP workflow out of SAP because it's so difficult to enforce structured intake rules. There's a lot of manual entry, right? And what we often see with some businesses is when you want to collaborate and make sure that the entry in SAP is correct before posting for payment, manual email and spreadsheet collaboration is common. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys a third question. How do supplier invoices currently enter your organization? There are AP inboxes. We find that to be pretty common. Maybe it's a combination of PDF files inside of AP inboxes. If you do have that combination, please feel free to click both. You should be able to click multiple. Um, Heck, maybe the paper invoices come in and they're scanned in. Or you might be dealing with automation already, and you might even be a global operation where there are legal requirements to do structured inbound invoice processing via XML files, or you might have implemented invoicing, a while ago, and EDI is kind of the way to go about that. So feel free to answer in. We're getting a few more seconds worth of answers in here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. Thank you guys so much for your participation. It really is appreciated. So I talked about it a little bit, but I want to really focus in on why AP is challenging in SAP for those of you that are like me and really like a visual. So as we all know, AP, we get the different invoices in different formats and in different channels. That's step one of an AP inbound invoicing process. Then you have your SAP environment, and you might do manual data entry. Fair enough. Takes a few seconds, maybe a few minutes to look at an invoice, type it in there manually. You might make some errors. But luckily for us, we do PO matching. But it's also being done in SAP. This is, somewhat challenging having to refer to a PO and then back to your invoice, manually type it in, make those edits in SAP. Not a fun time. And if there is that exception that I mentioned previously, the exception handling actually has to occur outside of SAP, the exception resolution, whether it's calling somebody in a different department, whether it's actually going down, writing the email, or going physically. There's a lot of work to resolve, and it's all being done outside of the same environment where the data entry PO matching has taken place. Then, of course, the approvals, right? Maybe some of you guys have a specific approval routing depending on dollar thresholds. It all needs to be done outside of SAP, or and you'll see some people actually opt to do it inside of SAP. Invoice posting is great to do in SAP, and payment processing as well. So it can be a challenge to do AP modernization in SAP because it can reside outside of SAP and inside of SAP. And a lot of these tasks that are being done in SAP are, SAP wasn't necessarily built for that. And of course, if you're in S4HANA, what you may have been doing in the past in ECC with the heavy customizations may no longer be agreeable in S4HANA. And finally, the audit and document retrieval oftentimes is done outside of SAP as well. So the solution that many companies employ is to try and do everything inside of SAP, right? And like I mentioned previously, SAP is really good for invoice posting and payment processing, but these custom ABAP workflows can be difficult to maintain. It increases technical debt over time. This really affects the IT personnel and stresses them out because now they need to figure out how to resolve it. And really, it takes quite a lot of effort. And anytime there's an upgrade, and if you have custom code inside of SAP, it's difficult to upgrade reliably without ensuring that your code, your custom code, isn't going to regress and stop working. And now it's going to affect AP personnel. And of course, from an SAP adherence and compliance perspective, it conflicts with the SAP Clean Core strategy, which again is to try and leverage APIs and get this business logic, the business logic in this case being step two, through, you know, a certain, we said invoice posting is really what SAP is good at. So from 2 through 6 outside of SAP, right? So that's not adherence to the Clean Core strategy. Alrighty. So question number 4 that I'd like to ask. The question is, how does your organization currently handle AP process extensions in SAP? Do you guys rely on custom ABAP programs like C code? Do you guys use user exits? Do you guys have SAP workflows or what is that? Embedded logic? Or do you guys do mostly standard SAP? Again, if you're not sure, that's completely okay. I do know that a lot of us here are AP personnel, and I am kind of exposing a somewhat technical conversation here. But yeah, we are interested in knowing from some of you what it is. And please, again, if you're not sure, feel free to just click on not sure, and that's completely okay. We do suspect that if a lot of you guys are in S/4HANA, maybe some of that custom ABAP programming no longer exists. Oh, and the user exits, the hooks also aren't. Okay, give it a few more seconds. Let's go ahead and close. Alrighty, very well. Let's move on. We're at the tail end of this presentation, so thank you guys for being here with me. Another thing that I'd like to talk about is governance. So what is the solution that exists for AP modernization? It can be very challenging. Well, that's where we introduce something called the governance layer. The governance layer is generally described as a framework of policies, controls, and processes to make sure business data is accurate, validated, and traceable. Traceability, if you're an AP, may ring a little bit closer to home when we think about auditing. And in fact, if we talk about governance from an AP perspective in SAP, it's no longer the framework of policies, controls, and processes. Let's translate that to AP lingo. It's processes, validation rules, and collaboration mechanisms. Yes, I know. Those of you that are in AP, collaborating can be quite a stressful thing to do, especially with how many different things that can go wrong with the invoices, right? The data accuracy that's involved, resolving exceptions. And all this should be done before posting to SAP. So that's what a governance layer is, guys. The governance layer is something that can be introduced to ensure that before before invoices are posted to SAP, that they remain fully validated, collaborated efficiently, and that the processes are strict to adhere to a framework of control. And ideally, this governance layer should also be fully traceable for auditing purposes. I know it's a mouthful. It's quite a bit, guys. Thank you guys for being here with me. And I'm going to share with you kind of a visual. Again, for those of you that are visually oriented like me, if we think about governance, it does have the word govern in it. Think about a government building. The Romans, they had 4 pillars. So there's 4 pillars to this. It needs to be able to have structured intake. If all these invoices are coming in different shapes and formats, we can structure them. We can also, now that we've given it structure, we need to validate those invoices, make sure that we validate it before posting in SAP. That's important. We resolve any exceptions that come about and we get the approvals that are necessary, and we can get that via a cross-collaboration tool. And finally, we have end-to-end traceability. So we have a full audit trail that makes it easy to actually be audit ready, audit compliant, and reduce those headaches that can occur during auditing season. And of course, all of this can be posted to SAP after the fact, at least within the first three pillars after the fact, whether it's a non-PO based invoice or a PO based invoice. So again, just another visual here, and it allows me to introduce the Compleo Invoice Platform. The Compleo Invoice Platform is an automated governance layer. It adds on to your current, it basically supplements you and enables AP personnel to validate and enforce that the invoices are easily digestible and collaborated on before posting to SAP. Importantly, if we look at this slide, you can see that steps 2 through 6 can all reside within this governance layer, this Compleo Invoice Platform. Data entry, PO matching, exception handling, exception resolution, and approval routing can now be done in a way that's clean core compliant in accordance with what SAP recommends for those of us that are on S/4HANA. And we can do invoice posting and payment processing just as you typically do inside of SAP without all of the burden of the steps that are done before, because you now would have a governance layer that facilitates all these tasks beforehand. Automation depends on structured data and validation. And so the idea is for this governance layer to, automate a lot of these steps and help these tasks. And governance ensures invoices are validated before there's a financial impact. Automation becomes predictable and scalable. And human intervention is a part of the workflow to allow for accountability. As we all know, a lot of us here are accountants, and accountability cannot be imposed on a machine that does everything fully automated. Because number one, there wouldn't be any accountants, but two, how can you hold the machine accountable? We really do need a level of automation that makes sense, that improves lives for accountants, but doesn't outright eliminate them. And finally, the business logic resides outside of SAP for easier upgrades as it is clean core compliant. So let me go ahead and ask a fifth question here for you guys. When an invoice exception occurs, how is it usually resolved? Is it email chains that you guys are communicating with one another? Is it Teams and Slack or any other adjacent internal communication tool? I mentioned previously spreadsheets. Are any of you guys using spreadsheets to track the life cycle of these invoices? Or do you have business logic tightly coupled inside of SAP? If it's another one that we haven't thought of, please feel free. I hope nobody's using a pager or texts, but it might be the case. We're going to wait a few more seconds to close this poll out. I do see we have a reduced amount of voting. So if you have yet to vote, I do encourage you to please vote. Alrighty, we're gonna get 3, 2, 1. Let me go ahead and close out of here. Okay, let's go ahead and continue with the next slide. So some of the capabilities of this Compleo Invoice Platform are listed on the left. That includes invoice intake management, so centralization of intake across different channels. Data extraction and capture, this I haven't touched on, but there is AI-enhanced OCR that allows invoices that look different to come in through the portal and extract the structure of these invoices to make posting that much easier. Now, a lot of the meat and potatoes of an AP invoice process is the validation against business rules. So your custom business rules can be imposed on these invoices with the Compleo Invoice Platform. Exception collaboration is something that we just talked about how you guys do that today. The platform, the governance layer, allows for expedited collaboration. You'll be able to see that momentarily through the demonstration. And then when it comes to the actual automation, we have workflow and routing within this governance layer that applies that rule-based approval, dollar amount thresholds, so on. And that handoff, that integration with SAP can be done via API. The traceability and audit history can also be fully shown and referred to for audit season within the governance platform. And finally, two-way, three-way, four-way match, however many different ways you match your invoices, the common ones we can help with. So between PO, the invoice, the goods receipt note, and the vendor info, including banking info if necessary, that can all be checked for with the platform. Here's a technological schema for those of you that are technically oriented and want to see kind of how this workflow goes. It seems complicated, but really from a high level, it just means Compleo Invoice Platform is something that interacts with real world environments, and it can not only push data to the SAP system, it can also pull data to actually make sure that those reconciliation tasks can be done correctly. We wouldn't be able to reconcile whether there's the correct vendor or the correct, or we wouldn't even be able to refer to the PO if we couldn't pull and push data from S4HANA. And you can see that we're leveraging business APIs, which is, again, adherent with a clean core. Final question for everybody here. What level of AP automation does your organization currently have? You might be doing mostly manual processing. You might have something OCR, object character recognition. There's also maybe partial automation. That's pretty typical, I would say. Fully automated AP platform, not so typical. Although we are getting some people to get on board with that. It is an industry trend, cross industry trend, I should say, to go fully automated or evaluating options. I'll give it a few more seconds, guys, and then we'll just continue with the demonstration. Okay. We got sufficient amount of votes. Thank you for voting. For those of you that did, go ahead and close it now. Alrighty. So, solution demonstration. This is our platform, our governance layer, clean core compliant solution with a login. I'm going to simulate actually what it would look like when an invoice gets received. So this is an email with the attached invoice. I'm going to go ahead and show you what the invoice looks like right here. It's coming from domestic supplier 10, and it's for a total of $84,533. All of the associated information is sent to an email inbox that is connected to our platform. So now from the perspective of myself, David, I'm logging on and I can see, because I have the permissions, all of the invoices across the organization. However, if I were a user that were more limited, I would only be able to see the invoices that are for me. Here, we can see that the invoice just came in. I clicked on the need review button, and it allows me to actually review the context of the message on the left-hand side, the email. On the right-hand side, I can see the PDF, and I'm showing you what the rotation buttons do. If it comes in the wrong rotation, you can adjust it. You can also assign the accountant as well as the billing site for a truly scalable solution that accommodates multiple regions and multiple billing sites. You can reject or you can apply. Upon application, it's sent to our AI-enhanced OCR portion of the solution. And what it does is it looks at the invoice and it extracts the necessary information from the invoice to make posting to SAP that much easier. In the meantime, have a look at our dashboard and you can check out how you can filter based on different things. You have different columns for different aspects of invoices that have yet to be processed, as well as the invoices that have already been processed. We finally got back the invoice that got processed through the AI portion of the solution. We're going to click on it. And by clicking on it, you now get access to this view. The view shows you the invoice on the left-hand side, and all of the data that was extracted by the machine is pasted on the right. This eliminates a lot of that manual entry inside of SAP because now that manual work has been taken off of your hands and placed on the machine. And you can see as we click on different things, the associated information is highlighted on the left. What I'm doing here is I am essentially making sure that the purchase order information is populated so that we can see the delivered quantity on the bottom hand side, as well as the billable amount and the billable quantity, and all these things about the actual purchase order and the invoice have been correctly pasted on the right-hand side. Vendor information, it's all there. Now, if you needed to attach something, you can add different documents that supplement the invoice. Likewise, when it comes to collaboration, you have different templates that you can leverage to make different goods to pay requests. And I'm actually going to show this off at the second portion of the demonstration. For now, just feel free to take a look. And you can even do ad hoc requests for stuff outside of good to pay. Maybe you need a request for vendor modification, order creation, credit notes, a review of the analytics, etc. But once the invoice has been already input by the machine, all you really need to do is make sure that there's no discrepancies and integrate. Now, what does integrate do? That's where you're able to post over to SAP. And so right now, the API is running in the background, doing that handshake, that data handshake, and it's actually populated an entry in the SAP system. You can actually see that it spit back an ERP document number, and I'm going to go ahead and copy that and use that to locate the entry inside of SAP. So here is our SAP system. The platform did inform us that, hey, we were able to successfully post to SAP. So I just kind of want to share with you guys what that looks like inside of our SAP system. So you can see that integration capability is very much there. When we click on the supplier invoices, we're going to go ahead and just kind of do some of these, manual tasks that are typical within SAP. And again, I already have the ERP number because it pasted it back in, or rather it posted the ERP document number in the platform. So I can kind of just use that to locate the invoice. And you can see that the line items and the information that's associated with that was, again, not even manually input by a user, but rather extracted from AI. It is now inside of SAP. I'm going to open up this window here because I want to show you that right now the blocking status is blocked for payment. But if I manually change that here on SAP, that can then be reflected within our platform. Here you can see that it shows as parked and free for payment. But if I synchronize the data, essentially I request that the data gets synchronized. Look at that, it's blocked for payment now. So there is that consistent interactivity between SAP and the governance layer that we offer with Compleo Invoice Platform. Now I'm going to go ahead and post it after making it free for payment. And by posting, that allows the department in charge of actually paying this invoice to go ahead and do that. And likewise, I'm showing you just again that has been set up free for payment and it's reflected within the platform. Okay. Now we're going to just kind of quickly here actually go ahead with the payment process in SAP. As you can see, this process has been sped up for demonstration. I would hate to subject you guys to, the fine real-time view of what it looks like to pay an invoice. And we're just kind of sorting here, looking for the correct invoice. It's been identified. Just kind of confirming here, right? Going to just type in the correct amount and post that in there. And the journal entry has successfully been posted. So I'm going to show you how in CIP, and CIP is the acronym for Compleo Invoice Platform, if we refresh, we can once again see that it is paid. And it might take, a few seconds. Mind you that this is, because it's a demo, I'm showing it to you live, but in a real world environment, it would synchronize automatically. And so now the paid invoice is marked as paid, and it will show up in the classified invoices tab. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of share with you where that is. It's going to take a few tries on my end to get it sorted. And there it is. That's the total excluding the tax, and it's integrated, yes. And you can see here now that when I click on it, it is paid. Right there, integration status paid. And the audit trail can be referred to here. You can see every step, who enacted which step, at what time, and all of the different status updates from SAP were then able to show here. And so this is one such flow where there is no exception handling, there is no collaboration really. I'm going to go ahead and show you, and it was PO based. I'm going to show you now what it would look like if it were a non-PO based invoice that is not accepted from an email. Actually, this might be the same one. 1 second, guys. Let's go ahead. This is the second demonstration. So now this is a different looking invoice from a different vendor called Ocean Computers. Just wanted to share with you what that invoice looks like so you can kind of see the flexibility of our AI platform because it can extract data from multiple different looking invoices. Now, I'm introducing this invoice into the platform a little differently because now it is going to be manually entered in. It's just drag and drop, guys. You don't necessarily, this is for those paper invoices that are scanned in. You can scan it into a PDF, manually drop it, and or if a PDF shows up outside of a email, you can just drag it in here as well. Now that we've uploaded the invoice, we can refresh it, and now it shows up there ready to be processed in that three-way view that you saw previously. Left-hand side is the invoice, right-hand side, it populates the associated information from the invoice. You'll notice because it's a non-PO based invoice, the vendor information has not been identified. Luckily, we have a table that connects with SAP, and we can quickly locate the correct vendor. Once we locate it, we select it, and it populates it. Notice how on the right-hand side there is red text. That's because the zip code is not showing up as being the same. So that might be a source of contention for processing this invoice. You might also notice that we have $0 from the billable line items. So we need to do coding. I know it's a very, coding can be not the funnest thing to do in AP, but it is something important to do. Luckily, we can look from a list of coding that we've done in the past. So we have historical coding capabilities, and we can just kind of review the coding. Now, during this demonstration, I'm not showing cost center allocation or analytical dimensions. However, that is another thing we can do. I'm going to add the correct GL account here. And the way that we're going to code this non-PO based invoice is by doing half and half. Half of it's going to go towards one GL account and half is going to go towards the other. I'm just right now putting the correct tax amounts. And once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and add the second GL account. And in just a few moments, everybody, I'm going to show the collaboration portion of the software and why it's overall an improvement over, what collaborating on a spreadsheet or some of these other ways that we collaborate. So for here, we're just typing in the correct tax amount and the correct GL account. And I'm going to actually show you how you can edit it once it's already been placed because we're looking at the total and just dividing it by 2 for different GL account allocation. So we're kind of benefiting here from the historical coding because I know which accounts to already place it on, purchase services and computer software. And now we've reached the point where it's reconciled. There's no more red text on the right-hand side. And now my issue is because this is an invoice that crosses the $50,000 threshold, I need to make sure that these two people are involved. And while I'm involving them, I want to make sure if Simon Clark, the first recipient, can determine whether the vendor zip code is off by 1. So I'm typing that as an additional message that can be appended to the request. And so I sent that over. I asked about the zip code and also about whether the coding is correct between the 50-50 split of the GL accounts. Now, Simon is actually not a user to the portal. Simon does not have his own login, but Simon can still get access to the portal via a one-time password. So Simon receives an email that looks like this. Um, it says who sent which request for which vendor invoice. Simon just logs in and is going to be sent a one-time access code. That one-time access code is resent via email. So Simon goes into his inbox, reloads it, clicks on the secondary email, and then types in that one-time password. This should be fairly standard for anybody that uses, uh, you know, authentication services for any software. Once you type in that one-time password, you've logged back into the platform, and Simon now gets a very similar, if not identical, view as myself. And so he's saying, I can't speak to the general ledger coding split, but the zip code being off isn't an issue. Vendor has made the mistake before. It may be off by one in their invoice template, and it's just yet to be updated. From my end, I'm going to validate the GTP. That's what Simon says, right? He's going to validate the good to pay request. Okay, great. So from David's perspective, if we just reload it, and we go back into the invoice, you'll be able to see uh, what he sees, or I guess what I see, right? It should update the communication portion, and sure enough, there it is, and it shows that Simon approved it, and now this has been handed off to demo user. I know, very creative name, but demo user goes into their inbox. They will receive an email. There it is, and it's letting them know same thing as Simon. The only difference now is that I'm going to show you what it looks like when somebody that actually has access to the portal logs in with their credentials and how they can now see any requests in their personal request queue. As this loads up, you'll see that it loads up at the bell on the left-hand side. That bell is where the requests reside. I can click on an invoice, me being demo user. I look at what has been worked on and said before by both David and Simon. I then look over the information, make sure I look at the GL, the way it's been coded. Nothing looks wrong here. It's all correct. So demo user is going to say as much. This looks good to pay. No issues on how this has been done. This is the correct way. Thanks. Validate the good to pay. Okay. So now it's been approved. It's outside of Simon's hands and outside of demo user's hands. It's back on David's plate. And so David is going to sign in from their view momentarily and just finish the integration of this invoice. So we're going to go ahead and close this. We're back in from David's point of view. I'm going to click on the invoice and we're going to see the work that has been done. But before we do that, actually, I got to make sure that it's all reconciled. There's no red text. Because there's no red text, that means that the information is good. It reconciles. And we can now integrate into SAP. And we don't have to do the payment execution this time around, but we can just refresh and you'll see that it's going to be integrated successfully. It's going to spit back out an ERP document number. It's in there. It's integrated. And we can see that from this view as well. It's been parked, it's been accepted, and it's been integrated. So everybody, thank you so much for seeing these two demonstrations. I know it was quite quick paced. I wanted to make sure I respected your time. And we have now approached the time for questions and answers. If there's questions, I'm going to be looking at the questions tab at the moment. I do appreciate that somebody said that they didn't see the presentation. Hopefully that's been reconciled, that's been fixed now. If you guys are not at the moment coming up with any questions, but you would like to contact me via email, please feel free to. You may also call me. It's been a pleasure. Somebody asked, I do see here, somebody asked, are you able to accommodate invoices from vendor portals? So that we can do. We have API technology, as you see. So as long as we have documentation on the vendor portals, we should be able to get it from there. We can establish a connection. Okay. And I'm going to wait a few more seconds to see if anybody else has any questions. Hopefully, with this presentation, you were able to see why the governance layer is important from a clean core strategy perspective, maintaining the core clean, and also from a return on investment perspective. With an AP automation solution, you're able to make sure that upgrades are more easily done and you improve the efficacy of the AP workflow. Let's see. How long does it take to implement such a solution? Uh, Anywhere from 45 days to 90 days. It really depends on which system you're on and kind of the level of commitment and the reciprocity in terms of, responding on time. But implementations are fairly quick. They can be as soon as 45 days, assuming that it is an S/4HANA system, and everything. There is a lot of know-how in terms of access to the sandbox environment, do some tests, but it's really not long at all. I know that there are other such solutions that can take half a year, a full year. This should not be nearly as time-consuming as an SAP deployment or implementation. This is just a governance layer that fits neatly and can be done within a couple of months. So hopefully that answers that question. And again, I invite you guys to reach out to me if you have further questions, if you would like a personalized demonstration with your own invoices that can also be accommodated, just so you can see the efficacy of um, having to remove that or being able to remove that manual posting and data entry. Um, I'm all for it. We can schedule a live consultation. Maybe we can learn a little bit more about your specific needs and what it is that you'd like to see out of a system such as this one. But that's all I have for today. Thank you, everybody, so much, and hope to be in touch soon. It's been a pleasure. Bye bye, everybody.